Hey Emma,
Yes, Madelyn.
what do you call the experience of living life in March 2020?
I don't know. What do you call it?
Death Stranding! Hello, and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I could have made the answer Vagrant story, and I think it would have worked just as well, but it's a less topical reference.
Yes.
I do feel a bit like a vagrant.
Yeah.
So hi, it's your vagrant host, Madelyn.
It's your Stranding host, Emma.
Excellent. That's what I predicted you would say.
Uh-huh.
I'm getting to the point where I could run the podcast through an algorithm.
Bad joke. Introductions. Get off topic for 20 minutes. Read the Wikipedia lore summary.
Is it on the Wikipedia best games of all time list?
Is it? Did you look it up?
I didn't. I imagine it is Vagrant Story. I imagine both of them are, probably.
Yeah.
But I didn't look it up this time because it wasn't linked on the Wikipedia page. So maybe it wasn't. But both highly reviewed games, so I wouldn't be surprised. So this week, as you might have picked up, we are going to be talking about Vagrant Story and Death Stranding. We did not pick Death Stranding on purpose. It really genuinely was randomly out of the hat of games, the virtual
It was. We swear.
It was not. Emma did not rig the systems that we would be talking about Death Stranding in possibly the most relevant week ever to be talking about Death Stranding, except for like next week and the week after that.
Just the whims of fate said, let's make them topical.
It's true. So we'll kick it off with this week's old game, which is Vagrant Story.
Yes, it just recently celebrated its 20th anniversary.
In February.
Yep.
So I feel like we don't talk about PlayStation 1 games super often, or at least we haven't in recent months. So it's an interesting...
I think a lot of the PlayStation 1 games we've talked about have been like series also.
Yeah.
Like they're things that maybe started on the PlayStation but then continued. So you don't necessarily think of them as like PlayStation 1 games, but Vagrant Story is just Vagrant Story.
So Vagrant Story was developed by Squaresoft back when they were Squaresoft, and released for the PlayStation 1, in the year 2000. It's an RPG. It's mostly real-time with a little bit of kind of time freezing when you're in combat. Mm-hmm. And it was a very, very well-reviewed game at the time that has since gone nowhere.
Yeah.
Vagrant Story is the game that I actually played this week, although in many ways I feel like aren't we all playing a big game of Death Stranding? So I feel like I can count that as one that I have played in a meaningful way too.
Sure.
But I did get Vagrant Story. It is only available for download for PlayStation 3 and I think the Vita.
Yeah, I think it's also on the Vita.
Which I, to be honest, don't really consider a system, but that's just...
I mean, you can get a lot of old games on the Vita that I would like to play that the PlayStation 4 does not have.
So shout out to Emma once again for letting me have the PlayStation 3 several years ago.
Yes.
I'm sure she's not regretting it now.
You know, I probably wouldn't switch between them very often, to be fair. It seems like a hassle in some ways.
You heard
Where would
it
I
first,
put it?
Folks.
Where would I put it in my extremely well-organized gaming shelf, you know?
Yeah. Well, Vagrant Story I bought for the low price of $5.99. Could have bought it as Emma, because the PlayStation 3 is still signed into her PlayStation Network account, but opted to not to pay for it myself, because I'm a kind person and I'm trying to put good karma into the world, especially right now.
You can take my $6, it's fine.
It's too late. My card is now on the account, so don't take advantage of me.
I will not, I promise.
But it's definitely a PlayStation 1 game. I've played about 2.5 hours of it, which evidently has not gotten me out of the prologue because the first paragraph on Wikipedia spoiled some stuff for me. I was like, oh, great. That's what's great.
I mean, if it's like 30 hours long, then yeah. I didn't look up how long it is, but
From
that's
what
pretty
I've
standard
read,
for...
it's like 20 to 25, but the crafting system is so complex that you could spend a ton of time on that if you wanted to. I doubt that I will have the patience to spend a ton of time on the crafting system beyond what I need to do, based on what I've read about it.
Yeah. You say, like, it's definitely a PlayStation 1 game, and, like, looking at it, like, yeah, it is. But I also, and you can talk about your impressions first, but I read this whole Twitter thread about the way that they did the graphics that was just, like, mind-blowing to me in terms of, like, how much they did to make this work. That also compares it against games that were coming out at the same time, and yeah, it looks incredibly better in a lot of ways.
Let's circle back to that once I've told people a little bit about this game.
Sure.
Because this is not a game that I knew anything really about until I bought it this week. So I'll assume that many of you, despite being out there counting the days till your Final Fantasy VII Remake drops, haven't heard about this little-known entry in the extended Final Fantasy universe.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about it until there were all these articles for the 20th anniversary being brought back, So
in this game, in Vagrant Story, you play as Ashley Riot. Ashley, notably a gender-ambiguous name, so we'll come back to that. You're a risk breaker, which is like a warrior elite agent of what's known as the Valendia Knights of the Peace. And what you're trying to do here in Valendia is you're pursuing this, like, evil wizard, wyvern master, cult leader named Sydney. Another gender-ambiguous name, although Sydney sports a bare-chested model, so I was pretty confident that Sydney was a man. I was like, this would be really bold to have just, like, a naked woman chest. But you know what? Sydney is much slenderer than the very beefy Ashley Riot, so I did still think it was a possibility. Anyway, evil Sydney is in cahoots with, like, a corrupt Duke member of the Parliament, and basically you, as Ashley Riot, are running around the city of Leamond, which was destroyed in an earthquake 25 years ago and is just rebuilding, trying to find Sydney, fighting some creatures along the way, and apparently doing a lot of very intricate weapons crafting eventually. Seems to be a distinctive feature of this game.
Yeah.
I've gotten to the point where we found out definitively, if you hadn't already read it in some of the guide stuff in the game, that Ashley, despite, like, looking kind of like a fierce Valkyrie, is not a woman. Because people have referred to me as he now, and I also watched a cutscene in this world that sort of seems to be based on kind of old school France, where my wife and child were murdered in front of me.
Yeah,
so now I feel pretty confident that Ashley Riot is in fact a man. And
very confident man.
I am disappointed about it.
Very body confident man.
A man who values a breeze. It wasn't even the butt cutouts that made me think that Ashley was a woman.
But they didn't hurt.
Probably. I mean, they didn't hurt. But, like, it was just the whole character design. I was excited. I was like, that's wild that it's 2000 and I'm playing as this, like, freaking buff lady. And apparently I'm not.
Yeah, if you've never heard of Vagrant Story, do yourself a favor and look up just what Ashley Riot looks like.
Ashley Riot butthole. Wait, not like that.
Not like that. Just look at what he looks like, what his character design is. It is very confident. He does not have pants on his butt.
Ashley Riot, cheeky boy.
He also has, like, a tank top that is very, like, in on the chest.
Okay, that's the reason that I thought that Ashley was a woman. Because
really?
His nipples are covered. Right? Yeah. In this kind of, like, not to stereotype, but kind of feminine tank top deal.
Yeah.
And like I have shirts that are cut like I like tank tops that are cut like that are annoying to wear because your bra like you have to wear a strapless bra basically. And I was like, Ashley rocking the strapless bra look here. But that's why, because Sydney was so clearly, like, exposed. But I thought there must be a reason that Ashley was wearing a shirt that clearly covered the nip area. In a feminine cut.
Unfortunately. It's just his look.
Oh, man. I want a remaster.
One of the funniest quotes that I read about this was the character designer, Akihiko Yoshida, who also worked on Nier Automata, so you know that this statement is true. But it's, when I'm having trouble coming up with a design, I'll start working on the back or the buttocks. Which is just, like, sure, you go for it. And it appears to have held true even 17 years later when he was working on Nier Automata. He still went for the buttocks first, I guess.
So, Vagrant story with its exposed buttocks. That's what makes you a vagrant, is if you're willing to walk around cheeks to the breeze.
I think so.
It takes place in the same world, apparently, although I don't think you would know it from the game, as Final Fantasy Tactics and Final Fantasy XII.
Well, the same, I think the director of this was the director for Final Fantasy XII.
And the team that worked on this was majority made up of the Final Fantasy Tactics team. So maybe that's why they say that, but somebody at some point on the team has said that it all takes place in the same world, which means that Vagrant Story is technically like a very unrelated Final Fantasy game. Which I was not expecting. And I still don't expect to impact my playing of the game in any manner.
I also saw, and this is also trippy to me, just because of... I'm always startled by how long Game of Thrones has been around, but apparently A Song of Ice and Fire was somewhat of an inspiration for both the story and the way it was written, like the sort of style of it.
I get that. I can sort of see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like thinking about that, it's like, wow, man, those books have been around, huh?
Apparently he's writing them again now. That he cannot go anywhere else.
I know. One day it will come out, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I read that, I was like, wow, that's crazy how old those books are. And how influential they've been, too.
Yeah.
For books and games and TV and everything.
And exposed butts.
Yeah. George R. R. Martin loves exposed butts, too. I'm pretty sure. I haven't read the books, but I can make assumptions.
In addition to apparently reading A Song of Ice and Fire, the design team took a trip to France to check out some location spotting.
Yeah.
I love when I read about that with games. It's like, the team went to France for research. It's like, yeah, okay, for research.
Well, I'm sure it was for research. Doesn't mean they can't have fun there, you know?
I know. It's just like, oh, where do I want to set my game? I could set it in Tokyo or Osaka or someplace that's easy to get to. How about France? Yeah, I'll have to visit France, of course, to get the scenery right. I'll have to go.
Go you do. You have to go, you know? You want it to feel right.
I'm not saying that you don't. I'm just saying, how convenient. You have to go visit France for the game on the company's dime.
But anyway, I want to tell you a little bit about the graphics here. So
please, it was the team's first 3D game, right?
Yes, it was their first 3D game. Most of their art team were more specialized in 2D pixel art. So the Vagrant Story models actually have half the polygon count of Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VIII characters, which you would not guess from looking at them.
They are substantially less blocky.
Yeah, like if you've ever seen like the Final Fantasy VIII screenshot, which like you're the handsomest guy here, and then it zooms in on Squall's face, and it's just like a mess of pixels. Like these guys are all very, like, they have very recognizable faces, even though they're clearly PS1 graphics, right?
Yeah.
So one thing, and this is actually a fun little fact, is that this particular thread from @Dreamborn actually talks about comparing it to Metal Gear Solid that had come out recently.
Convenient, nice.
So in Metal Gear Solid, I don't remember which one, if it was 2 or 1, but they don't actually, their faces don't animate. They use like head bobs to simulate conversations.
Interesting.
Whereas in Vagrant Story, they actually blink and their mouths move. And in order to do that, it was like they like subtly shifted the color of the pixels on their face instead of having to actually make them move.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. They also do not have a lighting engine in this game. So they simulated lighting entirely by like working with the 3D models. So for instance, characters would have light reflecting on them, but it's not actually light reflecting on them like you would do in a modern engine, right? You can't just like put a light source. So they actually created like another set of 3D models that were brightened up and slightly moved, basically, to sort of make it look like light was hitting them.
Yikes.
Even though it wasn't. And sort of similar stuff with the background, too. Like, just very, like, good simulating lighting without actually being able to, like, just put lights anywhere. Which is just, like... like, it's incredible going back to older games. I remember talking, like, when we did Silent Hill, too, like, the reason they put all that fog was really just because, like, they didn't want to model stuff in detail, right? But that's, like, an iconic part of that game series now. So really, like, I really like reading about these old games and how, like, how limited their skill sets were or their resources were and how they actually use those to make it look really good. Because, like, even, like, it's a PlayStation 1 game, but, like, even just, like, looking at it briefly, like, it still looks really good. You know?
It definitely, you can look at it and you can see how it was impressive at the time.
Yeah.
I think it would be, having played about 2.5 hours of it, I think it would be a stretch to say it still looks really good. Like, it looks really good if you're grading on a curve, absolutely.
Yeah,
and there are certainly parts of it that look really good. The game as a whole, I think it would be strong to describe as still looking really good in 2020.
Sure. Just a couple of other things, like they did some stuff where they would simulate depth of field. That wasn't really something you could do actually on the PlayStation 1. They just sort of had to fake it. They also have it goes straight from cutscenes into battle.
Yeah.
Which is still something people are like go wild for today when games do that. And so thinking about like they just did it for this game. It's just like something they did. They went straight from cutscene to battle. It wasn't like even now that's still like when Kingdom Hearts 3 did it, I was like, oh my goodness. Whoa. Yeah. The sound director made all the sound effects by himself. He didn't use sampling. He just used basic waveforms and manipulated them.
Amazing.
And the sort of comic booky style of like the text stuff
that's a really bold choice.
They didn't want it to feel like Final Fantasy, so they avoided all CG, which Final Fantasy was using at the time, like the big CG cutscenes. Mm-hmm. And also used sort of the comic book style to make it feel a little less Japanese, apparently. They want it to look sort of more like an American comic book.
Apparently the translation is sort of different, like is a little stylized in a different way too.
Oh yeah, they told the localizer, like, think of the Bible.
Ah! I cannot say that it reminds me of the Bible, to be honest.
Some of the lines here are like, the way to describe it, like, each line goes harder than before. So, like, I must avenge the foul murder. But be wary, your foe is strong. God is stronger. Like, that's pretty epic exchange, in my opinion.
It's true.
But apparently the localization was, like, pretty good in terms of, like, the director was somewhat involved in it, to, like, bring approval to how it was brought over to here. So, there's a lot of really cool things that went into the development, basically, that I had never heard of before, and had fun learning about.
And it was all developed over the course of about 2 years with, like, a team of 25 or so, I think is what I read. Yeah. That's wild. They were, like, literally hand shading light, basically. And they still made a 20-hour game in 2 years. That's crazy. Yeah. You know what else is crazy?
What?
Guess which button you use to, like, accept things and, like, say yes to things in this game.
Circle.
Yes. It's killing me. I cannot get used to it. Also,
I feel like there's been a few other games that do that, and it's always so awkward.
It's wrecking me.
I wonder if it was like a convention, if it swapped at some point on the PlayStation.
All I can say is it's not going well. Triangle button takes you to the menu. The R stick puts you into first-person view mode.
Like clicking in on it? That's not too weird.
like moving it.
Oh, like moving it. Wow.
Yeah, moving the camera is one of the trigger buttons. I don't remember if it's R1 or R2, like combo. But yeah, it's that's the big way that it's really reminding me it's a PlayStation game at all times. Yeah. Is that I cannot get the button configuration right. I can't do it. I was trying to open a chest, like, accept opening a chest for ages, and it wasn't opening, and I couldn't figure it, but it was because I was pressing the X button. It also has no meaningful tutorial.
Yeah.
I mean, except that, of course, I'm sure, like, I'm fighting progressively harder enemies. But it was a game that they designed on purpose to be kind of hard to pick up, and not a game for people who are going to get the game manual and read the manual. But I have been reading the virtual manual constantly. Because I did not know. I went into a boss fight and it was really hard. Only afterwards did I realize that I had spells, but I had to use the grimoire to learn the spell. It's like I had a heal spell.
It's like the DIY recipe.
I was literally just thinking that.
In Animal Crossing.
I was like, what is this Animal Crossing BS here in my RPG? Honestly, this really is just an Animal Crossing game with fighting. Because you're going to be doing a lot of crafting. And there are animals around. You're just murdering them. Bats and evil wolves.
Of course.
And ghosts.
It's good. I'm glad you're also murdering the ghosts.
It was hard. I failed the first time. But I did manage to poke him eventually.
That's good. Good for you.
In this game, apparently, it doesn't have any shops. It doesn't have any NPCs that you can, like, talk to. So it's very much not a standard RPG. It's missing a lot of that stuff. It just has a system where you can, like, forge weapons using weapons, and it's very complex. And I'm enjoying the game so far, minus the fact that I cannot get the buttons right. So I'll probably keep playing it. I mean, I have nothing but time, right?
Yeah.
I'll make my turns not playing Animal Crossing. I'll make Click Like Boyfriend play it handheld and play this or something. Mm-hmm. But if I have to get really into crafting, that's going to be a no-go. I can do a little bit. I'm fine with a little bit. But if I have to get really into crafting, that's going to be an absolute no.
Well, it's only $6, so, you know.
No, it's true. I already feel like I've really gotten my money's worth, so I won't be angry if I get to a point where I have to stop. The puzzles have been a little bit, not hard, but I definitely had to think a little bit on some of the puzzles to get through the dungeon. But I've solved them without looking it up, because I did not know how on earth I would describe where I was in the labyrinth. I was like, I'm down in the catacombs at the beginning of the game. No idea how I would look up how to solve this moving cubes puzzle. Zero clue.
Well.
And the combat is satisfying. It's tricky. I feel like I get hit a lot, so I'm probably not very good at it. Wikipedia described, so like the way it works is like you get in range and you press the circle button and you decide who you're going to attack. And then you get to choose, and this is all kind of in frozen time, where you're going to attack. And like each one has a different amount of damage and a different percentage to hit. So that's kind of fun. But then also I've now learned these battle abilities that if you tap another button at the same time as you hit, you like get a bonus, and you can chain those abilities if you can keep doing it as it keeps hitting. I have not managed to chain more than one yet, but Wikipedia described the combat as feeling somewhat like a rhythm game, which tells me that I am bad at this. I was like, this does not feel like a rhythm game to me. So, we'll see if I get better.
Well, you'll have to report back in 6 weeks or so.
5 weeks.
5 weeks or so.
It's also the only PlayStation game to get a 40 out of 40 on Famitsu.
Damn. It's pretty good. I mean, it's very good. I mean, it's perfect. So.
Despite the fact that they had to cut a ton of story content and a ton of features, apparently. Did you read about that?
I didn't read about that, but sometimes that's not a bad thing, you know?
You're going to have an AI partner, the story was going to be more complex. I mean, game turned out good, so it's probably fine, but it does feel like, yeah, that must have been tough.
Yeah. I mean, they were a 25-person working team who made a game in 2 years, so something was getting cut.
Yeah. So, speaking of games that should have been cut, no, I'm just kidding. Long games. Games that stretch the boundaries of what a game on their system can be.
Sure.
Games that defy genre.
There you go.
They wanted to defy genre with Vagrant Story. Speaking of games that defy genre, Death Stranding.
Is sure a game.
It sure is a game. Thanks for listening.
Shall we do a mashup? We gotta make Vagrant Story that is also sure a game.
So, you've probably heard of Death Stranding. You're listening to a video game podcast, so you've probably heard of Death Stranding. But if you haven't, it's a 2019 game from the mind of Hideo. Is it? How do I pronounce his name? I'm gonna embarrass myself.
Hideo Kojima.
Kojima, because I always want to do Kojima, but I feel
think
like that's
both
very
is fine.
American. Anyway, it's from the mind of Hideo Kojima and Kojima Productions, which was a subsidiary of Konami, and then as of 2015 is its own company, and this is its first game.
Yep. Konami and Kojima had a bit of a falling out. Originally, he was working on, in his last few, months or years there, he was planning to make Silent Hills, continuation of the Silent Hill series with Norman Reedus as the main character. He released a little free demo called PT that people didn't actually first realize was sort of an interactive trailer for Silent Hills. But if you managed to get the secret ending, which involved speaking into your controller, you would unlock sort of like the way out of the house, and then it would show you Norman Reedus walking off into the city of Silent Hill, and then showed the logo and stuff. However, that project did not come into fruition. But Kojima did not give up on working with Norman Reedus and Guillermo del Toro.
GDT.
The great GDT. And so, ended up announcing a game called Death Stranding, which for many years, nobody really knew exactly what it was.
And people still don't.
Yeah. So, Death Stranding is a post-apocalyptic delivery man simulator, in which you play as...
Fatherhood simulator.
Yes.
Single father delivery man simulator.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny. He's a delivery man. He's delivering the baby.
That's a good one.
You play as Norman Reedus, as Sam Bridges, who is a courier working for the Bridges Foundation. And that basically means that because of various events, including what's referred to as the Death Stranding, people have sort of retreated into inner underground sort of bases in order to insulate themselves from the outside world. And the only people who venture outside are delivery men like Sam, who bring essential goods and services back and forth between places.
Non-essential businesses have closed.
Yes. Everyone is self-quarantining. So there's all these sort of hazards outside for Y, in that there's something called timefall, which all the rain makes time accelerate for the things that it touches. So that includes people. So if you're not wearing like protective gear and it touches your skin, it makes you old, basically. Or at least that part of your body old. There are these monsters called BTs, or beach things. They're like big shadowy things that want to drag you to the other side, basically. And also, something has started happening that when a person dies, eventually they start to sort of go to the other side, and when they do, if they're not cremated before a certain time, they like go off like a nuclear blast, basically. So, also part of Sam's job is sometimes carting dead bodies to the crematorium so that they don't explode and level the land.
Much like Amazon workers today.
We're not quite to that stage yet, but yes, there's a certain familiarity, isn't there?
Yes. I do need to talk right now about how Norman Reedus handled stocking up for quarantine. Did you see this?
Well, did he get 12 packs of Monster?
He did not get Monster. That would have been a little too on brand. But he's dating Diane Kruger, who I feel like I've also heard of. She must also be an actress. Mm-hmm. But he brought home, she sent him out to get 2 weeks worth of non-perishable foods. Mm-hmm. And he came back with 2 boxes. One full of russet potatoes and one full of sweet potatoes. You see this? Looks like that.
Got their starch content.
They're perishable. They're also a lot of potatoes. Like, the man would not survive as Sam Bridges. That's all I'm saying.
Why was his first instinct potatoes?
I don't know.
I mean, maybe he went to the store and everything except the potatoes were gone. But
maybe?
Who knows?
It wasn't what I was expecting. I was expecting Monster Energy.
So anyway, in Death Stranding, there's this sort of bigger story plot device going on where the Bridges Corporation basically wants to hook all of America up to a network so that they can actually interface with each other. They can video call with each other. They can send information, you know? Because right now they're sort of they're all isolated on their own things. So it's hard for them to get in contact except through delivery men like Sam. But this network makes it so that they can use Zoom. Yes. So Sam is basically hiking across the country, making deliveries, but also hooking up sort of main hubs to this network, basically.
Only at the cost of a few bloody toenails.
Yes. So what you, the player, are doing most of the time is walking. Did you want me to say more than that? Because
I was expecting a little bit more.
Sometimes, eventually you can get a bike. You carry a lot of stuff on your back, so eventually you get sort of stuff that can help you carry it, like little things you can hook to you, like little carrier things. You make your deliveries. So people give you requests, you put it on your back, or carry it in your hands, or on your hips, or wherever, and you go from one place to the other, and try not to damage the cargo too badly.
Is there any kind of time limit on your deliveries?
Only on certain ones. So, like, I delivered a pizza. I had, like, a 30-minute time limit on that.
Or it was free?
Yeah. It's all free. I don't think Sam gets paid, to be honest.
No one is tipping Sam?
Nobody tips Sam.
I was about to say that this is like the Animal Crossing of being an Amazon delivery man, in that you at least don't have a horrible corporate quota behind you. Not like being like being an Amazon delivery man during the pandemic times.
Yes.
But now I take it back. No tips, forget it. Sam, go work for Uber Eats.
Yeah, it's like your connection level with different areas goes up the more you deliver stuff to them. And then the higher your connection level, the more services they can offer you. So, like, if you have 2 stars with them, you can use their sort of printer to print more, like, ladders and climbing ropes for you.
So he's doing it for the clout.
Yeah. Literally, actually, because most of what you do in Death Stranding is measured by likes. So every time you complete a delivery, you get a certain amount of likes for everything you do. If you make your BB happy, and we'll come back to BB, your BB will send you likes.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And also, sort of the main thing of Death Stranding that I find really interesting is the world is sort of populated with structures from other players. So you'll find climbing ropes and ladders, and sometimes they've left just bikes, or they've left shelters for you, or sometimes there'll be things that are set up that you can deliver materials to help them build something there. But you can do all those things, and you can leave likes on those structures if they help you, and other players can also leave likes on your structures if they help them.
How many likes do you have now?
I haven't checked lately. I don't remember. What was it the last time I sent it to you? I don't remember.
A lot. It felt like an impossibly high number.
Yeah. I must have delivered, like, a very important piece of lost cargo once, because my level went up, like, 5 times just from returning it. These likes also sort of factor into different aspects of you, like how fast did you do the delivery, like how much weight did you carry, stuff like that. And as you level up, you can carry more weight, or do other sorts of things. Sometimes it's like more structures will appear in this sort of area, because it's like a filtered online system. So obviously you're not seeing every player's structures at once, because then just the whole landscape would be structures.
Good job, BB Science.
Yeah, it would just be my good luck BB Science. Good work, BB Science. Because I don't build anything else. I only build good work, BB Science. That's not true. I wish it was. But it sort of filters it by your PlayStation Network friends, and then also just by what's there. I don't really know the system exactly.
You're in some kind of localized, whatever that means, group.
Yeah.
That does not include all players.
Yeah. Yeah,
so you're
basically
in some kind of subset. Who knows how that's determined.
Yes, exactly. And yeah. It's
What's been the experience of playing? Because I'm sure you've played it in the past couple weeks at least, right?
Yeah.
What's been the experience of playing it as the sci-fi becomes more slice of life?
You know, like, it's not super dissimilar from the experience of playing Animal Crossing,
You can't say that. That's got to be the lead quote for this episode. Death Stranding is not super dissimilar to the experience of playing Animal Crossing.
I'm kind of serious, though, because, like, my play sessions normally, and, like, there's this story going on, but it happens so slowly and out of focus that whatever. Which I'm charitably thinking of as, like, that feeling's on purpose, because that's sort of the way Sam feels about it, too. I don't know if that's true, but that's how I'm charitably thinking about it at the moment.
We'll see if you still feel that way when you get to the end and there's like 12 hours of cutscene.
Yes. But the moment to moment is just like you take on some orders or not, or you're like, you plan your route, right? Like you're in a locale and you're like, okay, where am I going? What am I doing? What's near me? So you open up your map, you look at it, it's like, oh, there's an auto paver over here that builds roads. I'd kind of like to take the road to, next destination or whatever, have some road for a while. So maybe I will just grab some materials from this place and walk out there and deliver them and see if I can build it up. And then you do that and you're like, oh, okay, there's some lost packages over here I see on the map or near me, so maybe I'll go grab that and then go back to the place and deliver it and see that. And you're like, oh, okay, there's some standard orders to this location, and that's on the way to the place I'm going, so I can take that, and then sort of plan my route as easily as possible. And like, oh, should I walk? Should I take a bike? It's very like...
Are you on purpose describing it like Animal Crossing?
A little bit, but that's also just what it's like on like a play session basis. Like I've been playing it a little bit more recently because I was preparing for this, but before this I was just playing it for like 2 to 3 hours on Saturdays, basically. And like that's all I did. I didn't really make any progress in the story a lot of times in that 2 to 3 hours because I was just like planning the different things I could do, I will say I wish there was like no combat in the game. I don't mind the BTs because mostly that's just like walking slowly until you get through them. But there's also these human enemies called mules that are basically like delivery men who have gone crazy. Like they just want packages now. Like they just want them to have them because they have become obsessed with packages. It's a little weird. But I had to go into their camp and, like, steal something back from them, and I'm not good at sneaking, so they noticed me, like, pretty much instantaneously, and then I just got into, like, literally the world's awkwardest slugfest, where I managed to take out the enemies around me, grabbed what I needed, and then just booked it until the truck stopped following me.
Perfect.
It was not fun. It was incredibly awkward. I was, like, again, maybe that's the feeling they want you to feel, but also I plan all of my routes as roundabout as possible so that I never have to go through mule territory.
Fair enough.
That's me.
What do you think about me making an Animal Crossing shirt that looks like the BB?
I think that's bad. I think it's bad.
You're right. Someone has probably already done it.
Anyway, the other notable thing that we haven't talked about yet of Death Stranding is the BB.
BB.
So, within the first chapter, Sam acquires a baby. It's the accidental baby acquisition trope, And the BBs are actually a type of tool used by some carriers. So, some people in this world have, like, different levels of being able to sense the BTs. So Sam is like a level 2 or 3 or something in that he can sort of sense them, but he can't like see them or anything with them. So like he hadn't been using a BB before. He'd just been relying on his own sort of senses to get through them. And there's different levels of them. So like higher levels of having this sort of, I think they call it extinction factor. Like, they can see them, and then really high levels, there's this terrorist guy who can actually, like, control them. basically.
Yikes.
Yeah. It's pretty yikes. But people without them use BBs, which are babies that are from mothers who died during childbirth, basically.
Orphans.
Yes. Or they're like stillborn babies, but they're not stillborn because they're alive, but like the mother dies before it's born, basically. And then they take it out of the womb, put it in a fake womb, and then because they have this sort of connection to death, basically, they like can sense the other side better.
Sure, they have a death strand. I gotcha.
Does that make sense?
I mean, not really, but I do follow what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Sam acquires this BB because the delivery man who had it before gets blown up in an explosion when they fail to bring... Oh yeah, Sam also can't die. That's another thing.
Sure, great.
But Sam decides to take the BB for his own after he decides that he can't, because it was scheduled for deletion, termination.
Emma, so much lore.
So, but instead of cremating the BB, he decides to keep the BB, even though like it's technically past like its expiration date. It's a little weird to be talking about babies in these sorts of terms, but that's how they do it in the game, so. Anyway. Probably BB's gonna die, but also BB is the best thing about this game, as proven by my good work BB signs that I leave everywhere.
There were some excellent... Back before we decided that gatherings like this were a really bad idea, there were excellent Sam Bridges... and BB, or Sam, sometimes without BB,
some
with
Dads
BB.
Mikkelsen.
Yeah, exactly. There were a lot of good Death Stranding cosplays at PAX.
The only story stuff I look forward to is, like, every time you come out of a safe house, you get, like, a vision where you're, like, tapping into BB's memories. So it's just, like, Mads Mikkelsen, like, doing something in a room. Like, talking to the BB. I'm like, what's Mads Mikkelsen gonna be doing this time? Is he gonna be dancing? Is he gonna read to me? Is he gonna tell me happy birthday? What's he gonna do? It's very exciting.
So, Emma, you still feel like this game is fun to play, even though
It's satisfying to play. I wouldn't call it fun to play, necessarily. But I really like the moment-to-moment of it. Even as I'm really uninvested in the story right now. I mean, all the actors are doing a great job. And stuff. But, Troy Baker is having a ball as Mr. Controlling BT's terrorist man. He's just having the time of his life.
Good.
So good for him. Yeah.
Do you think Death Stranding is going to sell a lot more copies now that people are inside? Because one, it's long, and two, it's topical? Or do you think it's going to sell less copies because people don't want to think about that stuff?
I don't know. I bought Pathologic 2, so I'm not a good
I know.
sample.
I know. Well, we've put it off long enough, Emma.
Yeah, let's make a mashup.
So it's like, you're a knight.
Sure.
Or you're like a medieval messenger.
Okay.
You can be on horseback in this one. Or eventually you can get a horse. And you, like, have to wear armor and stuff. But, like, that slows you down in a way it doesn't ever in games.
Mm-hmm.
And so as this... At first you're a medieval messenger. You're, like... carrying messages between noble lords and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Through hostile territory with bandits and robbers and warring factions.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually you get drawn into the conflict to protect the heir to the throne who has just been born. And it becomes your job to take this baby, this real baby, not like
a real baby.
Not like a womb baby, not like a death baby, or whatever BB is. This real baby, from place to place. carefully.
An authentic baby.
Yeah.
Why do you have to carry the baby from place to place?
I don't know. I was trying to incorporate BB.
Yeah, no, I like this idea. I'm asking questions in order to flesh it out.
Because different places become, like, unsafe for the baby for various reasons. Like, the wizards are going to be practicing somewhere, and the baby can't be exposed to the secondhand magic, because, like, it could turn into a troll. Or, obviously, like, a place, like, gets burned down and you have to leave. And at the end... Well, while you're doing, like, there's a building component to this, too, but it's, like, more medieval, right? You're building, like, aqueduct pieces.
Sure. Well, why are you building aqueducts?
I don't know. That was just a silly word.
Just a word that was medieval.
Yeah.
Like, they had aqueducts in medieval time, right? Did they, actually? Didn't they sort of drop aqueducts?
Are Roman.
I know, but didn't they sort of drop them for a while in, like, the Middle Ages?
Yeah,
They're like,
right.
No, we don't need water.
Oh, so it can be during the Dark Ages, because, like Death Stranding, it's, like, after the plague.
Sure, yeah.
So you're, like, taking the baby to protect it from, like, the contagion. Like, there's a plague, the plague is hitting the first part of the game is, like, pre-plague. Like, you're hearing about it, but the politicians aren't taking it, the kings aren't taking it seriously.
Politicians.
Sorry. And now you have to, like, at first you're just, like, carrying messages. Only at the end, you discover that you are Typhoid Mary and you've been the asymptomatic carrier. But because the baby has spent so much time with you, it's developed an immunity. And it will live.
Neato.
Pretty dark, right?
Pretty dark.
Doesn't have anything to do with Vagrant story.
It's got the time period, you know? It does feel like you kind of have to throw, like, a cult leader in there, though, because there's one in both stories.
You're right. Okay, how can I incorporate? Well, there's a cult leader who, at first is... No, that's too topical. I can't make it, like, literally.
Come on, Madelyn, we need some cutting-edge content here.
I was gonna be like, at first the cult leader is trying to tell everyone everything is fine and that it's just, like, magic, and if they, like, do magic spell. The cult leader thinks it's a wizard conspiracy.
Okay.
That wizards are, like, doing magic on people.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end we discover germs. And hand washing.
What an inspirational ending.
Right?
Discover germs. Just closes on, like, a dramatic shot of the germ.
No, it closes on your character who'll be called, like, Sir Aqueduct. Like, washing his hands in the river. And, like, you can see them, like, pulsing green. Because he's been healed.
I see.
He's no longer an asymptomatic carrier, if only he had washed his hands.
Maybe he, like, washes the baby, and then, like, he holds the baby up to the light.
Yeah.
And then the credits roll.
Look, it has the right level of, like, ridiculous.
It does. It does. You're right. No, I think there's something promising there. I like the idea of being, especially the idea of being, like, a medieval messenger. Like, I like that sort of concept.
Yeah. And you can ride horses, but there's a risk that the horses, like, maybe the horses are infected.
Yeah, you could ride the horse off a cliff and it'll explode.
Exactly.
I haven't done anything like that in Death Stranding.
You probably also are going to still have to do some carting of dead bodies. It's very medieval.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think it's perfect.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good, honestly. There's some plot beats that aren't quite fitting together yet, but that's fine. That's the workshopping stage, you know?
Yeah, we'll get exclusively pixel artists to do the art.
Yeah, we're like, you're not allowed to use any modern conveniences.
Yeah. Like, the experience of making the game will be like the experience of playing Death Stranding. One foot in front of the other.
Beautiful. What a beautiful sentiment.
Well, folks, on that note, this has been another episode of Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
Now more than ever, as we're trapped inside, we appreciate having you here out there listening to us in your home, I hope, wherever you are. On a solo run or a solo walk, I guess, is okay too. I'll allow that. But if you really want to stay up to date on content from us, because we all know you're not doing anything but checking social media anyway, you should follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Talk This Podcast, and we're on YouTube at Talk This Sisters. So now's the best time ever to watch all the Play This series, to like look at all of our dumb memes that we post on our social media. It's a great time to be a follower, and you'll never miss a blog post or an episode. Speaking of blog posts, you should check out our website, www.talkthispodcast.com, where you can read more about the show, read about us. I finally updated my bio. Very exciting.
Very exciting.
Not what I was doing, like, literally in the summer of 2017.
Yeah. We need to rehaul the website, as we've been talking about since, like, the beginning of the year.
But now we have the opportunity, as no one is going
Thank God
anywhere.
for the plague. Am I right?
Oh, man. But also, while you're on our website, you should check out our blog, where you can read long-running series Clickbait Boyfriend, which is back now. We're doing Remind, and Split Screen. So both of those have new posts in the past 2 days. Is that right?
Yeah.
I think so. 2 days. So you should check it out. And Emma and I are also going to be trying to do more kind of one-off content, I think, during these indoor times. So check out in the next couple of days, if not today. Who knows our timeline.
Probably the next couple of days.
Yeah.
Spread out that content, you know?
But check out in the next couple of days one of our classic X Thoughts and X Hours on Animal Crossing New Horizons. How many hours is it going to be? An embarrassing amount. Say that right now. So it's a great time to be a blog reader. Finally, last but not least, and most importantly, if you haven't already, we'd love for you to subscribe to the show. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Pandora, both on the app and on the website, Overcast, Pocket Casts. If it ends in casts, we're probably on it.
Probably.
So you can subscribe to the show, listen every week on Sundays at noon. That way you'll never miss an episode. It'll be a good excuse to give yourself a break from your family, roommates, the silence of your empty apartment, whatever. And listen to Talk This. So, Emma, in 2 weeks' time, what are the 2 games that we're going to be talking about?
Our old game is going to be Minecraft.
Amazing.
Heck yeah. And our
Great
new
time
game,
to talk about Minecraft.
Minecraft is also post-apocalyptic, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's also the only school that kids have now.
And our new game, we haven't done Code Vein yet, right?
Nope.
All right, then we're doing Code Vein.
Nice.
Maybe I'll have to actually put that back in.
Next week, it's side quests. It's my turn to pick a topic. I'm leaning towards talking about good games to play in this time of need.
Sure.
But that's not definite, so you'll have to tune in next Sunday to hear what topic I chose and what we've got to say about it. But that's all you get to hear from us this week. We'll not see you, but you'll hear us next Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Emma, do you want to sign off? Do you want me to do sign off? Where's the sign off happening?
This week, order only the essentials. Because think of your poor Sam Bridges worker man.